So yeah, I went and saw The Batman the other day. But actually in this video, I mainly wanted to talk about how much of a missed opportunity there was with the character of Selina Kyle, also known as Catwoman. But in order to do that, I do have to actually talk about Batman and explain my thoughts about what happens in the movie. So here's a rare T1J movie review.
But before that, please give me just a minute to talk about Nebula. Nebula is a streaming video platform that is owned by and also features the content of many of your favorite content creators, including myself. We made Nebula so that we could have a platform to create and share unique content without the stress of the YouTube algorithm deciding our fates. And if you hate your videos being interrupted by pre-roll ads or sponsor segments like this one, you can watch my or other creators' videos ad-free on Nebula. Or you can check out one of the many Nebula originals that you can't find on YouTube or anywhere else. To help us accomplish these goals, we've partnered with CuriosityStream, who has kindly sponsored this video. CuriosityStream is a streaming service with thousands of entertaining and thought-provoking documentaries and non-fiction titles, such as My Comic Shop Country, a documentary that explores the world of local comic book stores and how that differs from the billion-dollar superhero movie industry. We think CuriosityStream is a perfect match to the smart videos you'll find on Nebula, so we've set it up such that if you sign up at curiositystream.com/T1J and use my code T1J, you'll also get access to Nebula absolutely free. And CuriosityStream is offering you guys an amazing deal where you can get 26% off an annual plan, bringing the total to less than $15 for a full year of both CuriosityStream and Nebula. It's a great deal. Go check it out.
Hi, I'm T1J.
Follow me.
If you've been following for a while, you know I love superhero movies, but I'm mostly an MCU guy. I do think the DC characters still have the potential for great stories and subsequently great movies, but I have found almost all of them to be somewhere in between awful and mediocre. There are some good ones though. All in all, The Batman was a pretty well-made movie. One of the best live-action DC movies ever, for sure. Although again, that's not really saying much in my opinion. Obviously, there's going to be massive spoilers, so there's your warning. All the performances in this movie were great. The setting was spot on. You can tell that they were trying to be faithful to what audiences already know about Batman. They didn't do anything weird like put nipples on the costume or make him talk like the Cookie Monster.
Do I look like a clown?
And even the other non-Batman characters were handled with reverence to the source material. The movie also really did a great job of capturing the gritty, dark atmosphere of Gotham City. And even though it was rated PG-13, it still felt very brutal and even disturbing at times. They were able to really imply the violence and abuse happening in Gotham's underbelly without getting too graphic on the screen. And I don't mind a serious R-rated superhero movie. I thought Logan was amazing, for example. But I understand that studios often push for PG-13 ratings to appeal to a broader audience. And it takes talent to make a setting still feel ruthless and cutthroat under those limitations. So I wanted to commend the filmmakers and performers for that. The Riddler as the villain in this movie is pretty great. This is a far cry from Jim Carrey. As far as terrifying, unhinged, genuinely scary live-action Batman villains go, Paul Dano's Riddler, who was inspired by the Zodiac Killer, is near the top of that list. In some parts, this superhero movie kind of felt like a horror movie or psychological thriller. But I think that's true of a lot of film noir, which I would describe as the main genre of this movie. So in terms of setting and tone, I think this movie accomplished everything it was trying to do. I have to admit though, and before I say this, I fully acknowledge that I'm a basic ass superhero nerd, but I love Batman because of how cool he is in the comics, cartoons, and animated movies. And I'm always excited when a new live-action Batman hits the scene. But for some reason, filmmakers are obsessed with Batman's tragic backstory and his anger and PTSD, which I do think is an important part of the Batman story, but it's not the only thing that makes him interesting. And it's definitely not what makes him cool, in my opinion. Batman is a superhero. If you want to do a movie about a sad rich boy, that's fine, go for it. But when I go to a superhero movie, I would like to see superheroes doing badass superhero shit, not brooding and staring blankly into the distance for most of the movie. That's just me though. And I don't mean just whooping ass and dodging explosions, although that's obviously awesome. I also mean solving problems with sharp wit and keen intelligence. I think that's why there's so many dope-ass animated interpretations of Batman. Sure, it's a different medium, so everything might not work the same, but clearly they also focus on different aspects of the Batman character. In comics and animated media, Batman is definitely usually depicted as brooding and antisocial, but he's also empathetic and funny when the time is right. And I do mean Batman, not Bruce Wayne. Outside of the costume, Bruce is usually charismatic and charming even in the live-action depictions. Although in this movie, Bruce is still just as gloomy without the mask. But in animated movies, even as Batman, the character is more likely to be portrayed as understanding when cleverness or kindness is a more useful tool in the current moment. We don't really see that in this recent batch of live-action movies over the past 15 years or so. He's just angry all the time. The Batman is about a young Bruce Wayne in his second year of crime fighting. So while he is more than capable of breaking the noses of local criminals, he's still very inexperienced. And you see this throughout. The movie leans into the fact that Batman is a detective, which is something a lot of interpretations ignore, so I appreciate that. But the thing is, he's not very good at it yet. The villain is the Riddler, so as you might imagine, much of the movie involves Batman finding clues and attempting to solve riddles. And almost every time, Batman fails to find the clue or solve the riddle adequately or quickly enough. Even when it comes to action, which we might imagine is where his strengths lie, his inexperience shows there as well. There's a scene where Batman has to escape from the roof of a skyscraper and uses a gliding suit and a parachute to get to the ground. The sense I got was that this was his first time using this because it was ungraceful, to say the least. This is a contrast to the hyper-competent, borderline genius Batman we usually see in fiction. And although I prefer the badass, competent Batman, I do acknowledge watching Batman learn how to be Batman is a pretty intriguing idea. And this is something that has been explored in other media before, such as the Year One arc of the Batman comic series. One of the central premises of this movie and of the Batman backstory in general is that Gotham City is pretty much run by criminals. Most law enforcement and political figures are corrupt, which incidentally is one of the main reasons why the argument that Batman should just use his riches to save Gotham City rather than his fists doesn't really work. In fact, one of the major plot points of the movie is that money that was supposed to be used for philanthropic causes is simply being funneled into the pockets of crime bosses. Essentially, the Riddler wants to expose this corruption, as well as punish those he feels are guilty for the sad state of affairs in Gotham. And also, I guess, sow chaos and kill a bunch of people. Honestly, I feel like the Riddler's motivations were pretty clear until the third act, which honestly I think didn't even need to exist. But you know, it seems every superhero film apparently has to have some ridiculous set piece with a bunch of explosions to close out the movie. But this movie was way too long at just under 3 hours, and it's extra bad because they totally could have ended the movie 30 minutes earlier. I feel like the ending just felt kind of tacked on. Anyway, the Riddler was inspired by Batman's vigilantism to take justice into his own hands. And of course, a recurring question that comes up in Batman stories is whether or not he creates more villains than he defeats. And also, whether or not the fact that he doesn't kill people actually makes him morally superior to vigilantes who do.
You showed me what was possible. You showed me all it takes is fear and a little focused violence. You inspired me.
And that's kind of the point of this movie. It's Batman learning that justice is a better cause to fight for than vengeance. And that's what should separate him from people like the Riddler. But by the end of the movie, it's revealed that the Riddler is planning to just kill a bunch of innocent people. To be clear, the main plan is to assassinate the mayor-elect Bella Real, who the Riddler believes is just another liar. But there's a lot lot of intentional collateral damage in the form of human lives. If the initial motivation was punishing liars and corrupt officials who are ruining the world for the little guys, it doesn't make a lot of sense to kill a bunch of the little guys as well, right? Maybe this was the movie's attempt at checking viewers who may have sympathized with the Riddler up to this point. Because if we're being real, unlike Batman, the Riddler is actually focused on the systemic problems in Gotham. He's not beating up 20-year-old gang members in the subway station. He's targeting the corrupt politicians and business owners who actually allow and cause the economic anxiety that leads to people becoming gang members. And this is extra funny because in the movie, the Riddler actually has an online following that he streams his crimes and manifestos to. So it's almost like they knew that to some people it would sound like the Riddler was actually kind of spitting. But I guess they wanted to drive the point home that if you support someone like the Riddler, you're supporting a terrorist who kills innocent people, not just the bad people, which I guess maybe is some level of filmmaker responsibility. But in the context of the movie, it muddies up the Riddler's motivation and just turns him into another cartoon psychopath, which kind of contrasts the realistic tone of this movie. While investigating the Riddler's crime spree, Batman runs into Selina Kyle, a server at a seedy nightclub who also happens to be a talented cat burglar. Now, maybe this was just me being hypnotized by Zoe Kravitz, because who can blame me? But immediately, this character's story became much more interesting to me than whatever the fuck Batman was doing. The problem is we only get her story in small bits and pieces, but there are a lot of unmentioned implications that will be really interesting to explore. For one, this character is biracial, and I'm not just saying that because Zoe Kravitz has mixed heritage herself, but I am assuming that her character is not white based on how the actress looks. I mean, I think that's fair. But the movie does reveal that her father is the crime boss Carmine Falcone, and this relationship exists in the comics as well. Similarly, I am assuming that Falcone is white because he is played by John Turturro, an actor of Italian descent, who, by the way, is amazing in this movie, as he always is. One of my favorite actors. We also learn that Falcone abused and eventually killed Selina's mother, and there's a possible implication that Selina's birth was itself a product of assault or coercion. So, as you might imagine, Selina doesn't like this guy very much. Now, I'm not saying that being biracial in and of itself makes a character interesting, but Selina's the only character in the whole movie that seems to acknowledge that the spoils of all the corruption in Gotham City are being collected and hoarded by rich white dudes, one of whom is her father. There's a weird scene in the movie where Selina actually calls out Batman for being an out-of-touch rich white man who doesn't really understand what people like her have to go through.
What the hell is that supposed to mean?
It means your choices have consequences.
Jesus Christ. Choices? You know, whoever the hell you are, you obviously grew up rich.
Which seems to be correct, but there's really no payoff for this confrontation. There's no reason to believe that it actually affected or convinced Batman of anything. In fact, Selina makes out with him shortly after that, so it kind of took away some of the sting. And yeah, I guess I should mention the vague romance going on between Selina and Batman, but it's not really developed in the movie. I think they just wanted an excuse to get two hot people to make out. I can't think of any reason why these versions of Catwoman and Batman would actually like each other, but I'm sure you guys can explain it to me. Anyway, the idea is that even though Selina is blood related to one of the most powerful men in the city, she doesn't get to reap any of those rewards. And we know that Selina is struggling because we see her rundown apartment and close-ups of her overdue bills. The movie doesn't imply that her racial background has anything to do with why she and her mother were abused and neglected by Falcone, but it's not hard to believe and could have added a layer of complexity if Selina was the main character of this movie. This version of Catwoman is also bisexual, which is normally how she's portrayed in the comics, although not really in the movies. And we know this because Kravitz has said so herself in interviews. But we can also infer from the movie that Selina Kyle most likely had a more than friends relationship with her roommate, Annika, even though Selina seems coy about admitting that. But honestly, I guess it's not really anyone's business, is it? And again, not being straight doesn't necessarily make her a better character. But Selena works in a sleazy nightclub that is filled with powerful scumbags that ooze chauvinist hyper-heterosexuality. Hyper-heterosexuality sounds like the worst superpower, by the way. And she often feels forced to use her own sexuality as a means of taking back some of that power for herself. But my guess is that she'd probably rather be at home peacefully watching Netflix with her girlfriend than getting her ass pinched by gross old mobsters. So Selena Kyle is an intelligent, capable, bisexual woman of color, which is already compelling from a representation standpoint. And she works a shitty, dangerous job, presumably to get close to her father so she can one day take back the payment she believes she is owed. Not only because she's his daughter, but because of everything he has put her and her mother through. After which she apparently planned to leave Gotham City and likely America as a whole with her partner and make a better life. Unfortunately, before any of that happens, Annika is killed by, you guessed it, Carmine Falcone. So at this point, Selena is thoroughly enraged and simply wants revenge. So she goes after her father. And let me tell you, for a person who is very good at breaking and entering, as well as hand-to-hand combat, Selena is not so good at shooting guns. So her murder attempt goes south very quickly. But again, I found this to be an interesting character insight. It's possible that this was her first time shooting a gun, or at least her first time trying to kill someone. Not to mention, this person is her father. And yeah, that dude sucks, but that's still a tough thing to go through with. Maybe her nerves got to her. She doesn't give up though. She continues to chase Falcone down and eventually corners him. But of course, she's stopped by Batman. And he's like, listen, I'm all about vengeance, but not the kind where you actually kill people. You can break all their limbs, beat their face till they have brain damage, and also make sure you make friends with a high-ranking law enforcement officer so you never face any accountability for these brutal assaults, but don't kill people. And of course, she listens to him because it's his movie. But Falcone ends up being killed by the Riddler anyway. So Selena's agency in this situation was pretty much completely stolen from her. I'm not necessarily saying Batman was wrong from discouraging her from killing Falcone, but throughout the movie, I felt like Selena was made into a bystander in her own life, despite clearly being very skilled and driven. She's in the movie a lot, but she doesn't really get to do anything. Like, she tried to make some, albeit usually illegal or dangerous, moves to figure out and improve her situation, but was pretty much foiled at every turn, usually by Batman, which makes sense because the movie's called The Batman, and ultimately we're supposed to care about Batman's arc, not Selena's. So she didn't really get one. Essentially, a bunch of fucked up stuff happened to her, other people resolved it, and then she left town. I'm just saying, Selena deserved a better showing than simply being an accessory to Batman. If they fleshed her story out more, that would have been a better movie in my opinion. Make Batman the side character. Her story is way more interesting. And there's like 19 Batman movies. There should really be a Catwoman movie, right? It's an iconic character. They've never done that before, and that is what I choose to believe. So yeah, the movie was fine, way too long, but at the same time, some missed opportunities. Yeah, I guess that's my Batman take. Thanks for watching.
I want to give a quick shout out to the homies, Lee Greenberg, Klein, Chris Miller, and Beyond Binary Thinking. If you'd like to support this channel, please consider checking out my Patreon page. Also, I've re-enabled the like-dislike bar since YouTube has hidden the dislikes. There's kind of no reason to do that anymore. So if you like the video, don't forget to hit the like button. Anyway, that's it. Stay Heiko. Bye-bye.